Today is Saturday, April 23rd, 2016, and I'd like to share with you a Teisho on a Jataka that I did during the week at the Jataka session in Toronto, which ended yesterday morning. So I'd like to look at a uh, uh, very important Jataka moment. And it's a classic Jataka, the tale of the sage Sumedha meeting with the Buddha Dipankara, who was the Buddha of a past world age. The sage Sumedha was the Buddha in a past lifetime. In the Pali tradition, this meeting highlights a really significant moment in Shakyamuni Buddha's evolving path. It confirms him on the way of the Bodhisattva. And it shows not just someone making a deeply personal commitment to their practice, but when that personal choice leads to public confirmation and gives a definition and shape to the entire journey, which is quite lengthy, as you'll see from the traditional perspective, quite lengthy. Anyway, in this Jataka, his goal becomes clear, not just his practice, but his actual goal, which is to become not just a person of some realization, but a full Buddha, able to aid all beings, who's worked out all their flaws of character, who's seen through all their own self-centeredness, and to really realize the full potential of the mind in all its potential for goodness and wisdom. The tale is not included in the Pali Jataka, but it's considered the core of the traditional introduction. It has a separate book from the Jataka, and it's known as the tale of the lineage, or the Nidankanta, or Nidankantaka, and it's set world ages ago. It throws light on the central mythos of Buddhism, the unending tale in which Buddha follows Buddha in the great wheeling endlessness of no beginning, no ending time, our great play of emptiness as form, form as emptiness. So let me read you the story from The Hungry Tigress, an earlier Jataka book of mine, and this will be from the final edition of this book, which was published by Yellow Moon Press in 1999, I believe. It goes like this. 4 Asankaya Kalpas and 100,000 world cycles ago, long time back, a decisive moment was reached. At that time, by the way, a Teisho is another form of Zazen. So when we sit with our practice, paying attention fully. If you're working on a koan, to keep the koan in mind and let listening happen the way wind. You'd hear the sound of wind or the sound of crows. Just let it in. Let it come through. Let it go. Don't mull over it. And if you're doing a breath practice, then continue to experience breath. Counting might be a little complex, so just try and be one with hearing and being present in your sitting. And let the Teisho come in. Again, just let it enter. Let it do what it's going to do. Don't mull over it. Don't try and hold on to it. But remember, you're still doing Zazen. And this is Teisho Zazen. So at that time, the future Buddha was born into a wealthy Brahmin family in the city of Amaravati, and he was named Sumedha. He was blessed with all kinds of goodness: physical beauty, intelligence, friendliness, kindness, moral vigor, commitment, and strength. His parents died when he was still young, and as the steward went through the list of all of his inherited properties and wealth, noting so much from his mother, from his father, from his grandparents, from his great-grandparents, and so on, back and back for 7 generations, this young man, Sumedha, the Buddha in a previous life, began to think, my family has amassed wealth for 7 generations, yet neither my parents nor my grandparents nor any other of my ancestors could take any of it with them when they left this world. What's the point of amassing more? One day I too will die. As there is a road that leads beyond the sufferings of this world, should I remain idle? No. I'll leave this sheltered life and find that way. So he gave away his money to the poor, and he entered the forests. As a hermit, Sumita ate wild fruit, wore clothing of bark. That was the tradition. His hair and beard grew long and matted, striving energetically, standing, sitting, lying down, looking deeply into his own mind. He gained profound insight. For many days he sat absorbed in the bliss of his newly won freedom and knowledge. Now, at this time, remember this is a past world age, the Buddha Dipankara, surrounded by thousands of monks, nuns, and lay people, was making his way to the city of Amaravati. And people were busy smoothing and leveling the road before the city in expectation of the great teacher's arrival. The hermit Sumita was roused from his samadhi, state of complete oneness. In the old days, they said monks could enter samadhi and be there for days, weeks sometimes. Seated cross-legged, he rose up into the air and flew over the forest until he came to the road. Calling down to those working there, he asked, "What's the excitement? Why are you laboring in this midday heat? Why is the road being leveled and strewn with golden sands? Why are you putting up all these flowers and opening up all these perfumes?" "Venerable Sumita," replied the workers, calling up to where he hovered in the clear air, "don't you know? The Buddha Dipankara is approaching the city. This evening he will give public talks and reveal his Dharma." Sumita's heart leapt for joy. A Buddha, he thought. Rare indeed is it to even hear the word Buddha. Rare beyond all comprehending to actually meet a fully realized one. Descending from the air, he alighted beside the workers and said, "Let me help you level this road for the Buddha Dipankara." Seeing that his powers were supernatural, the foreman assigned him a stretch of low, swampy ground to fill. With his heart pounding in expectation, his mind lit with joy, repeating over and over, "A Buddha, a Buddha," he began filling in the marshy ground with dry soil. Now up ahead near the city, drums beat, trumpets sounded, flutes trilled, crowds called and murmured. Looking up, Sumita saw bright banners swirling, flowers and jewels tossing in the air. And at the center of all that noise and commotion walked a calm figure, the Buddha Dipankara. He was approaching. Sumita saw six-hued rays of light linked in pairs of colors extending from the Buddha. He saw a halo of golden light and wreaths of pulsing light like lightning rippling across the star-studded sky encircling him. Devas, beings of higher realms, tossing celestial flowers and strumming golden instruments, made exquisite music as they flew around as well. Then thoughts arose in Sumita's mind. Here at last is one who has attained all the super knowledges, all wisdom. Here at last is one free from all greed, anger, and ego delusion. Here at last is one in whom all goodness has been fully realized. I shall make an offering to the Buddha Dipankara for the sake of Buddha knowledge. Loosening his long hair, Sumita spread his bark-cloth cloak before him in the mud. Then he thought, like the Buddha Dipankara, I too want only to help all beings. How can I be content with mere personal liberation while others still suffer? I am determined. Despite difficulties and dangers, I will not turn back. I am resolved to attain what the Buddha Dipankara has attained and benefit all beings. Then Sumita lay down upon the bark-cloth cape and spread his long hair, making a dry passage for the Buddha Dipankara to walk over the mud. The Buddha Dipankara arrived at that spot and stood by Sumita's head. Looking down, he thought, this hermit has formed the resolution to be a Buddha. Will he be successful? And casting his mind far into the future, he saw that 4 kalpas and 100,000 world cycles from that time, Sumata would indeed become a fully realized omniscient Buddha, an awakened one, and that his family name would be Gautama. And standing there, surrounded by his disciples, the thousands of monks, nuns, men, women, children, all stations from beggar to king, the Buddha Dipankara made this prophecy. 4 Asankayas and 100,000 cycles from now, far, far in the future, the hermit lying here in the mud before us will fulfill his great vow. He will be a Buddha named Gautama. His birth will be in the city of Kapilavastu. His mother's name will be Maya. His father's Suddhodana. His clan will be the Shakyas. When he is grown, he will see the 4 signs: old age, sickness, death, a monk, and he will leave the world. After great exertions, he will receive, when near death, on the banks of the Naranjana River, a life-saving meal of milk rice. Then, strength renewed, he will make his way to the foot of a bo tree, seat himself there, and continuing his exertions to the utmost, he will attain supreme Buddhahood. Lying in the mire, Sumata became delirious with joy. My deepest wish shall be attained. I shall be a Buddha. And the crowd murmured, here is a Buddha shoot, a Buddha seed. We too shall make efforts, and if we should fail to attain the path of freedom in this life under the guidance of the Buddha Dipankara, we'll surely succeed in the time of Buddha Gautama. We too shall triumph. Then the Buddha Dipankara praised the Bodhisattva, encouraged him. Making an offering of flowers, he saluted him, palm to palm, with his hands, and accompanied, that is, he gashoed, and accompanied by the thousands of monks, nuns, and lay followers, he departed. The Bodhisattva Sumata arose and exclaimed, the words of a Buddha cannot fail. They are certain. Like an arrow which once shot from a bow must fall to earth, so too these words are destined to be fulfilled. I shall become a Buddha. He rose from the mud up into the clear air and flew back again to his retreat high on the mountains. And there he remained, steadfastly striving towards his ultimate goal. So that's the story. Now let's take a look at the notes that I originally put together for it, and then we'll comment on it from the perspective of our practice today. So the legend of the meeting of the hermit Sumata, the historical Buddha of our world cycle in an earlier birth, and the Buddha Dipankara in that distant time, is a key moment of the Jataka tradition. It's the traditional introduction to the Pali Jataka. It's set, obviously, in an inconceivably distant past. And it's a crucial moment in the Bodhisattva's, if we can call it a career, the Bodhisattva's career. He's already obviously attained a high degree of self-mastery, but he now gives up the idea of personal liberation and aligns all his future destinies with the welfare and liberation of all living beings. Not until he has attained the ability to aid all beings will he himself enter nirvana, and not until all are freed will he cease working for the welfare of others. As it will obviously require an inconceivably vast period of time before all beings, down to the last blade of grass, have attained full liberation, this vow of renunciation suggests a limitless dedication, a dedication without end. The Jatakas are essentially a very small part of the record of all the subsequent lives of Sumata, from this moment of his decision to his historical birth as Siddhartha Gautama and the attainment of Buddhahood. His vows made now underlie and define the path of the Bodhisattva. This desire to fulfill a selfless and heroic vow to liberate all beings is at the heart of Mahayana, that is, great vehicle, a vehicle capable of carrying all beings to liberation. Great vehicle Buddhism has this vow at its heart. In Zen monasteries and training centers all around the world, great vows for all are chanted at the conclusion of all formal periods of Zazen. As you know, the many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all. This is the vow of the Bodhisattva. This is what we're doing in Zen practice, vowing to really actualize these deep vows at the heart, the core of all hearts and all minds. These vows spontaneously arise in the mind and heart of Sumedha. Buddhist cosmology holds that on this earth there have been many Buddhas, some sources say 7, others 24, including the historical Shakyamuni Buddha. The next, several million years from now, will be the Buddha Maitreya, who now meditates in the Tushita heavens, developing skillful means, upaya, paramita, to save all beings, because you can't just come down and say, I save you. How do you do it? He's working on developing skillfulness to achieve this profound aim. Now, the Buddha just prior to Shakyamuni, but ages after Dipankara, is said to have been the Buddha Kashyapa. There's a curious traveler's tale that was written by the famous 7th century Chinese Buddhist pilgrim Xuanzang about that past Buddha. The story goes like this. There's this very high mountain, and a number of years ago he wrote, he was writing in the 7th century, a piece of the mountain fell away. In the caves that were exposed sat a religious, it was like a mendicant, with eyes closed, only he was tall as a giant. His body was wasted, and his beard and unkempt hair fell down to his shoulders and even covered his face. He was seen by some hunters or woodcutters who ran to inform the king, who hurried to the spot, and the news spread, and soon the entire population of the city was there. A monk explained what had to be done. He said, a man who has entered a state of ecstasy, samadhi, can remain in this condition for an indefinite period. His body is supported through mystical power and escapes destruction and death. Exhausted by his long fast, were he to emerge from this condition of complete absorption abruptly, he would die, and his body crumble to dust. His limbs must be moistened with butter and oil to make them supple, then the gong can be struck to wake him. So this is done, and when the saint heard the gong, he opened his eyes and looked around. Then after a long pause, he asked, "You who are so small, who are you?" Receiving a reply from one of the monks who was standing around, he asked for news of his master, Buddha Kashyapa, Shakyamuni's predecessor, who had passed away hundreds of thousands of years before. The monk replied, long, long since did he enter the great nirvana. Hearing these words, Xuanzang goes on, the saint closed his eyes like a man in despair. Then suddenly he asked, "And has Shakyamuni appeared in the world?" "He was incarnate," they replied. "He gave guidance to the age, and he entered nirvana in his turn." At these words, the sage lowered his head. Then he lifted his flowing hair with one hand and rose majestically into the air. By a miracle, he was transformed into a fiery sphere, which consumed his body and let the calcined bones fall back to the earth. The king of the country had a stupa erected to him in the heart of the mountains. So when Sumedha returns, back in our story, to his isolated hermitage, he was working on jhana, that is one-pointed meditation, from where Zen gets its name. Jhana, paramita, one-pointed concentration. In China, the Sanskrit word jhana became jhana, which is Chan Buddhism, which in Japan became Zen. And he was working on all the paramitas after that. Dana, or generosity, shila, virtue, morality. And because they're paramitas, that means we have to work on them to perfect them. Kshanti, patience, virya, effort. Jack Kerouac actually liked to call it enthusiasm. Jhana, one-pointed meditation, contemplation. Prajna paramita, non-dual wisdom. Upaya paramita, skillful means. Pranidhana, which is vow or resolution. Bala, spiritual power and confidence. And jnana, knowledge emerging from or melded with prajna. So this story plants seeds of faith in karma, rebirth, aspiration, determination, and the endlessness of no beginningless time. It encourages our own efforts, reminding us that if we keep going, we too will get further than when we started. If there were past Buddhas, there will be future ones. Indeed, the next full Buddha, as we've said, is Maitreya. He's working hard, or she is working hard in the Tushita heavens to resume the ancient Buddhist practice of liberating all beings down here on earth. In only 1 billion years or so, she's going to be ready. In pre-communist Tibet, the imploring message, "Come, Maitreya, come," was often carved on boulders and on the side of cliffs, accompanied by large, carved and painted Buddhas. When our kids were little, Rose and I created a Buddhist lullaby for them. Come, Maitreya, come. Come, Maitreya, come. Come to earth and take a new birth. Come, Maitreya, come. Maitreya's zazen is so deep. Maitreya's zazen is so deep. He's now in Tushita preparing to be the future Buddha to teach you and me. Come, Maitreya, come. Come, Maitreya, come. Come to earth and take a new birth. Come, Maitreya, come. There's also a Zen connection. Zen Master Dogen specifically referenced this Jataka when he wrote, "Embody in yourself the dedication of a boy spreading his hair on muddy ground for the Buddha to walk on." That's in his masterwork, Shobogenzo, Eye of the Treasury of the True Dharma, Section 10, Valley Sounds, Mountain Colors. Dogen says this is how we should practice. Not forcefully, not aggressively, not determinedly, if by that we mean self-consciously, not competing with others, but devotedly, with dedication and the willingness in the midst of and at the very time of our thinking we've gone as far as we can go to bend just a bit further and give more. In this Jataka, the Buddha was already an advanced practitioner who could fly through the air. Yet seeing the Buddha dip in Kara, he is overcome with awe and humility. I was just thinking of Prince, who died at 57. I guess some years back, Eric Clapton was asked, how does it feel to be the greatest living guitarist? His reply was, I don't know, ask Prince. Humility, no matter how far along. I think that's a wonderful little example of it. Here, Sumedha is overcome with awe and humility, seeing someone who's gone already so much further than he has, no matter how far he's gone. I mean, he can fly through the air. Not only does he bend down, he sets his own hair in the mud for the Buddha to walk over. He was a mountain hermit with long matted hair piled on his head. Like a boy is what Dogen says. That means like a child. That is innocently, unself-consciously, spontaneously, like a child. Also totally absorbed in a samadhi of innocent delight, not afraid of mud, delighting in squishing it between his toes, smelling the wet earth, feeling the sun on his face and on the back of his neck as he lowered his head and let his hair fall. This, says Dogen, is the essence of how we should practice, so absorbed, without a core of me, 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 without a nest of self-consciousness to which we return over and over. Such humility is gone, gone, gone beyond where we were, beyond self-centeredness, beyond returning to old mental haunts. No unbowing is real bowing, such bowing to Buddha. Giving ourselves completely, we find ourselves in losing ourselves and are confirmed. The 10,000 things step in and replacing us, confirm us. As Dogen says, intimacy is realization. The Buddha we see, though, might not be encircled by radiant glowing lights or be surrounded by admiring crowds of flower-tossing followers. The Diamond Sutra says if you look for the Tathagata to form and color, you are going the wrong way, and you will not see the Tathagata. How will you meet the Tathagata? This is our challenge and our responsibility. Zen says Maitreya will come in about 1 billion years. Do we really have the patience to wait? Are we that lazy? Come on, people, let's get together and find Maitreya now. There's no need to be afraid of getting our hair dirty. Like kids playing in the mud, we can jump in and out of puddles along our path home, lost in enjoying the mess of what Zorba called the whole catastrophe. How'd you get all that mud on your hair? Gosh, Mom, I don't remember. The 10th ox-herding picture is clear. That in Zen, we're not aiming to be pristine saints dressed in white, without a speck of dirt on us. We are not beyond difficulties and messes. We are them. We have no way to separate ourselves from them, be above them or better than them. We are not the righteous or the elect. Yet in the midst of our daily mess, something shifts. There is lightness, not a light. There's a willingness, my gosh, joy to be where we are, as we are, in this uniquely, wonderfully imperfect place. This oatmeal, how can I begin to tell you what it tastes like, or how I even taste it, the sound of the wind or traffic, or leaves, the sunlight? How can I relay them to you, these ordinary things? Olivier Messiaen, the French composer confined to a German prison camp during the Second World War, listened to bird songs. The freedom, beauty, joy of their ordinary music, we hear it every day, had a profound effect on him. When he was freed, all his compositions, piano music, organ music, his profound quartet for the end of time, were based on his personal notation of birdsong made during his confinement. The highest art, the movement of clouds, the rush of water down the gutter is with us all the time. Do we have the no eyes to see, the no ears to hear? The ordinary, this very land, is the pure lotus land. This very body, says Hakuin, the body of Buddha. The 10th and final ox-herding verse, its wonderfully ordinary conclusion shows the final stage of Zen practice. It points to the truth that even Maitreya doesn't have the patience to wait. He's already snuck down to earth as the roly-poly monk, Hotai, wandering the highways, byways, and markets with treats and goodies, doing what he can to lighten everyone's load. This, too, is bending to let hair drape in the mud. The verse goes to the 10th ox-herding picture. Bare-chested and barefooted, he comes into the marketplace. Muddied and dust-covered, how broadly he grins. Without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he swiftly brings to bloom. muddied and dust covered, how broadly he grins, is one of the great images and gifts of ongoing Zen practice. Not isolation, not withdrawal, not a perfect purity of rarefied, isolated spirituality, but honest to goodness intimacy with everything. Mud, stars, bird poop, roadkill, laughter, tears, joys, sorrows, heat and cold. With no separation, we find we are already home. With no purpose, we engage real purpose. Without self-conscious effort, withered trees spring to life, burst into a spring that knows neither yin nor yang, and without even noticing starts to bloom. We're all withered trees. All Buddha root as the word bud, to blossom, Buddha, to open fully. How? As Dogen says, embody in yourself the dedication of a boy spreading his hair on muddy ground for a Buddha to walk on. Something will walk across. Don't wait for radiant lights or expect crowds of worshippers. Again, the Buddha in the Diamond Sutra said, whoever seeks the Tathagata through color and form is going the wrong way. Such a person will not see me. How then will you meet the Tathagata? Our whole life is a quest to meet the Buddha face to face and receive confirmation. How is this done? How do we lower ourselves to the muddy ground so the Tathagata can walk across? Devotedly count. 3. Devotedly be this breath. Devotedly be this koan point and question. This moment of what Dogen called thinking, non-thinking, persist. Devotedly go back to ground, willing to get down in the mud of all our lazy, self-centered, even nasty thoughts. A lotus will grow. It is said that a lotus can only grow out of mud. It can't grow on empty mountaintops. If we live and practice, as Dogen says, embodying such dedication, like a child spreading his hair in the mud for a Buddha to walk on, we won't have to wait for predictions or prophecies of Buddhahood. Confirmation confirms this breath, this raindrop, this flower opening, this morning star, this knee that hurts, this itchy nose, this unexpected thought. Dogen says that nothing is not confirmed. Nothing is without its confirmation. He writes, there is not a single thing that is not confirmation. How can it be otherwise for mountains, rivers, earth, Mount Sumeru, or great oceans? There is not one or a half of the third child of Zhang or the fourth child of Li, that is an ordinary person, who is without confirmation. And, he adds, confirmation is the coming and going of birth and death. Confirmation is the entire world of the 10 directions. This is Dogen. That was the quotes. What confirmation will we find when we become intimate? What prophecy will we receive that foretells this joy? No need to worry. As this Jataka dramatizes, it's in the bag. All we need to do is keep going a few million lives. It's guaranteed. Just keep practicing. Onward with this breath, this count, this koan, this never to be repeated round of Zazen, this night of Sesshin as we settle down and accept that, like the Buddha, we too are in it for the long run. Then birdsong sounds our prophecy. Morning stars shine it, moon in Milky Way, dance it till dawn, awake, rejoice, 1,000,000 lifetimes, fine. If we sincerely work at it, we can't miss it. That's the good news. For now, we'll pay attention to that aching knee, that problem at work, that bill that needs paying, that complex relationship with so-and-so. Going on together with all beings, we confirm the Buddhahood of star, bird, Milky Way. No need for special confirmation for ourselves. There's something a bit stinky about that anyway, isn't there? Confirm my self's future Buddhahood? Which self? Vimalakirti called out Maitreya, the future Buddha himself, on this very point. Chapter 4, Vimalakirti Sutra. Maitreya, the Buddha has prophesied that only one more birth stands between you and unexcelled, perfect enlightenment. What kind of birth does this prophecy concern, Maitreya? Is it past? Is it future? Or is it present? If it is a past birth, it's already finished. If it's a future birth, it will never arrive. If it is a present birth, it does not abide. For the Buddha has declared bhikshus, that is monks, nuns, in a single moment you are born. In a single moment you age, you die, you transmigrate, and you are reborn. Then, says Vimalakirti, might the prophecy concern birthlessness? But birthlessness applies to the stage of destiny for the ultimate, in which there's neither prophecy nor attainment of perfect enlightenment. Therefore, Maitreya, is your reality from birth or is it from cessation? Your reality as prophesied is not born, does not cease, nor will it be born, nor will it cease. Furthermore, your reality is just the same as the reality of all living beings, the reality of all things, and the reality of all the holy ones. If your enlightenment can be prophesied in such a way, so can that of all living beings. Why? Because reality does not consist of duality, Maitreya. Whenever you attain Buddhahood, at the same time, all living beings also attain liberation. Why? The Tathagatas do not enter ultimate liberation until all living beings have entered ultimate liberation. For since all living beings are utterly liberated, the Tathagatas see them as having the nature of ultimate liberation. Let rain say it, sunshine confirm it, mud squish and hair falling on our eyes make it real. And let us with this 1, 2, 3, with just this breath, just this koan, give it life, speak it, and breathe it back to all. Shakyamuni had to go beyond the Buddhas of the past and realize it himself to fulfill his vow to save all beings. No matter how many Buddhas have come into this world or will come, it's still up to each of us to go beyond what has already been if we are to fulfill our own ancient vows. No one else is doing it will do the job for us. Dedication and humility opens the way, which is endless. The prophecy is confirmed when we become ourselves. Yet, when we become ourselves, we don't find something called myself or someone who is Buddha. What do we find? In our world age, far, far in the future from that long ago day, when Dipankara Buddha predicted it, a self called Sumedha was reborn as a self called Siddhartha in a town called Kapilavastu, which, as Melville said, is not down in any map. True places never are. Dogen also writes in Shobogenzo, Confirmation, an ancient Buddha said, I now hear from the Buddha about the magnificent confirmation and about receiving it continuously, my body and mind fully rejoice. For confirmation causes all things to be as they are. We'll stop here and recite our vows for the many beings.